Welcome, friends. I'm Lisa Levenger from Accelerated Literacy Learning, and I'm here to start today by greeting you with all for one and all for poetry. I want to start this morning off by sharing some wow lines from our time together, exploring feelings in poetry when we worked together on Wednesday. I've already received a bunch of poems. I want to share with you 6-year-old Lily's poem. It really spoke to me. My wow line from her poem is, falling beneath the ground. Sophie, a 10th grader, wrote, to swim your way out is to overcome. That's a real wow line. It takes my breath away. Finally, one more participant wrote in and shared, eyes drift, sounds disappear. I couldn't be more grateful or more overcome with emotion in rereading some of the feeling poems that you sent to me. Please keep them coming, as this month we will be hosting our first ever Accelerated Literacy Learning Poetry Contest. All poets out there who are interested in participating have the opportunity to win some ALL swag, plus some poetry poems to inspire you throughout the month. If you're interested in participating, please consider sending your submissions to Susan at acceleratedliteracylearning.com. I'll go over that at the end of our session again, but just to let you know, we are reading your poems and they really, really take our breath away. Today, I want to just take a quick look at our poetry. We've had a really big week of poetry together. Look how much we've learned. So far, we've learned that poets observe ordinary objects and make them extraordinary with their words. We've also learned that poetry is a wonderful way to explore feelings. We learned yesterday with Susan that poems have rhythm and form. We also, at our first session, learned with Lorraine that poems paint pictures in our minds. And today, friends, we're going to learn that poems use their 5 senses to enrich their poems. So poets use the 5 senses to improve and to enhance their poetry. I would like today to share a poem with you by one of my most favorite authors in the world, and that's Maya Angelou. So her poem, I'm going to post it right up here so that you can have a good view of it, is about popcorn. Let me have a quick read of it with you. Popcorn leaps, popping from the floor of a hot black skillet and into my mouth. Black words leap, snapping from the white page, rushing into my eyes, sliding into my brain, which gobbles them. The way my tongue and teeth chomp the buttered popcorn. When I have stopped reading, ideas from the words stay stuck in my mind, like the sweet smell of butter perfuming my fingers long after the popcorn is finished. Maya Angelou is a master of using the 5 senses to make her poem even better. Just to remind you, the 5 senses are your sense of touch, your sense of smell, your sense of seeing, hearing, and tasting. And if we were to analyze and do a real close reading of this poem by Maya Angelou, we would see, in fact, that she really does use the 5 senses. So let me just highlight for you here some of the times that she employs a technique that poets often use, which is engaging those 5 senses. So right here, popping from the floor, you can hear that, right? If I go down into my mouth, you know that there's some touch because she's moving the popcorn from her hands into her mouth. So there's a sense that's employed right there is touch. Rushing into my eyes. You can see that, right? And later on down in the poem, there are a couple times where she talks about taste. So the way my tongue and teeth chomp the buttered popcorn is taste. And all the way at the bottom, like the sweet smell butter perfuming my fingers. Yep, there's the taste part. So even famous poets like Maya Angelou use the five senses to enrich their poems. Now here's the fun part. We're actually going to do that together today. I'm going to do something that I call chip writing. Let me put our poem over here. I've been waiting for this all morning. I've grabbed my favorite snack, which happens to be tortilla chips, and we're going to experience what it's like to write a poem while actually savoring each of the senses through our chips. Are you ready? Don't forget to grab your poetry paper, which always should be housed in your poetry folder. Please do have a designated poetry folder so that you can collect all the poems you've written so far. I have had a couple opportunities to write poems this week. I wrote one with Lorene yesterday about a shell. I'll look forward to sharing that with you next session. I wrote a poem the first time about feelings when I was with you on Wednesday, about a feeling of happiness I experienced. And so today I'll grab my poetry paper, which, just to remind you, is paper that is just lined paper or unlined paper, whatever your preference is, and you just cut it in half. This kind of forces you to write down the page, as opposed to storybook writing, which looks like you're going to fill up all the words from margin to margin. So I've grabbed my poetry paper, and I'm ready to start my poem. So a reminder that the five senses are touch, smell, look, sound, and taste. So let's do this. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab my chip bag and really have a moment to just touch the bag and see if this elicits any poetry ideas for me. So as I touch the bag, I notice that on the very top there's a ridge. And that, for me, feels like a very strong word to start a poem. So in fact, that's exactly what I'm going to do on my poetry paper. I'm going to take my favorite color marker, which is pink, as you know, and start off by writing that word, ridge. Okay, so I've touched. I've got this strong word here, ridge, which is inspired by my chip bag, and now I get to open the bag. All right, here comes my sense of smell. Really salty, really delicious. I like that line, though, salty inhale. So let me add that to my next line of poetry. You'll notice that I'm not writing, it feels like a ridge, it smells salty. That's really storybook writing. So if you're tempted to write those words, it feels like, it smells like, what I invite you to do is, while you're writing, you could actually write the five senses here and then just cross them out. Feels like, cross it out. And then you just take the word that's left behind. You've moved from storybook writing to poetry writing. Okay, so we've touched it, we've smelled it, and now we're going to get to look at it. Okay, one of the things that I like to do, and if you have this at home, I invite you to do the same thing, is I actually like to do a little bit of a deep look at something, looking at it like a poet does, the way Lorene talked about with us yesterday, that poets take ordinary things like a chip, but study them very intensely like a poet. So why not use my magnifying glass? So that's exactly what I'm going to do. Interesting. Actually, I've never really noticed this. Chips have small brown dots, kind of dotted or kind of splashed in random places. I kind of like that line. Brown splashes in random places. I'm going to add it. Brown splashes in random places. You know, I noticed about a lot of poems, they use one or two or three words, or even four, or even longer. Maya Angelou's poem sometimes goes from margin to margin, and then she'll throw in just a couple words. So I'm playing a little bit around today with moving my words into different locations. So just to share with you, I just felt like places belonged right there in the middle. What going to talk about that in one of the lessons coming up about white space, but just playing around with that thought a little bit today. So we've done the touch, we've done the smell, we've done looks like. Now we're going to do the sounds like. So I'm going to take a couple chips and actually crush them up in my hands and really take a listen to what sounds might emerge from this experience. I'm not sure if you guys can hear it out there, but for me, it's got a very loud and distinct sound to it, and it kind of is making me feel like the hooves of horses. And maybe that's because when I was little, I used to be a very avid horseback rider, if you can believe it. So I'm going to throw that in here. The hooves of horses. I'm going to actually throw in a little bit of a memory, climbing up a mountain. When I met with you on Wednesday, we talked a little bit about using an image, a color, or a memory to enhance the feeling of a poem or enhance your own feelings through poetry. I'm going to use that same technique in writing the poem today. So the hooves of horses climbing up on a hill. Okay, so far my poem is ridge, salty, brown splashes in random places, the hooves of horses climbing up a hill. I've done it. I've done touch, I've done smell, looks like, sounds like, and now I get to try a chip, which is our last sense, which is a sense of taste. So please excuse me while I take a bite. Okay. I'm getting a little bit of a flavor there. Okay. Maybe because I didn't bring a drink up here with me today, it's making me think about how I'm actually crazy thirsty. So I'm gonna add that as a poetry line. So far throughout this poem, yep, I've used the 5 senses. I've definitely added a couple memories. I used an image of an animal. I think I'll throw in a color there. And talked about brown, but I think I'm going to look back at my chip and remember that there's a lot of shades of beige. So I'm going to add that in there. And I also like to always add a surprise ending or something to kind of tie in the poem, either with a strong feeling, a strong memory, a strong image. So I'm going to, maybe because this memory kind of the horses and doing horseback riding is giving me a memory of when I was growing up and doing this horseback riding with my dad and thinking about the times we spent as a family. I think I'll do my last line to kind of share a feeling, which is longing for home. So I'm really excited to share my poem with you today. I'm going to reread it to you. It's ridge, salty, brown splashes in random places, the hooves of horses climbing up on a hill, crazy thirsty, shades of beige, longing for home. So Poetry Pals, today I want you to find something delicious in your cupboard. It doesn't have to be a full bag of something. It can really be something small, like a cookie or even a beverage. Take your time and pour over that item using your 5 senses, your sense of touch, your sense of smell, what it looks like, what it sounds like, and what it tastes like. No storybook writing. I don't want you to write full sentences, only poetry writing, okay? So this is a wonderful, wonderful technique to enhance your poetry. Please remember that all month long, we're collecting your work for our first annual poetry contest, where every one of you can be a winner. We're selecting winners for each grade level. Submissions, again, should be sent to Susan at acceleratedliteracylearning.com. Susan will be hosting on Monday. She says, please bring your designated poetry folder, plus, of course, poetry paper and your favorite writing utensil. It was wonderful to have this time with you today. I want to remind you that we'll be live every single day, except for the weekends, on our poetry session, Facebook Live sessions. And I also just really want to wish you a fantastic weekend. And remember, be kind, be safe, and be hopeful. Bye, everyone. everybody.